The job posting said, personal assistant needed, discretion required. What it should have said was, widower seeks young wife to torment. I recognized Vincent Moretti the second I walked into his penthouse office, not from Forbes, not from charity galas, from the VIP room of Eden, the underground club where I danced under the name Luna for 3 years. His gold Rolex glinted as he poured scotch, the same watch that had brushed my thigh while he whispered, "You remind me of my late wife," through a haze of cigar smoke. Now, clean-shaven in a $5,000 suit, he didn't recognize me, but someone did. "Dad, this is the new hire?" The voice iced my spine. Leaning in the doorway was him, Jesse Moretti, 24, 6'2", the only client who'd ever gotten banned from Eden for breaking rule. #1, no falling in love with the merchandise. His green eyes locked onto mine, a slow smirk spreading. "We've met." Vincent frowned. "Where?" Jesse took my hand, lips grazing my knuckles. "Bookstore?" The lie dripped with amusement. His thumb traced my pulse point right over the tiny star tattoo he'd kissed the night he begged me to quit dancing. I married Vincent 6 months later. The prenup gave me nothing. The bedroom gave me bruises. But the real prize? The safe behind his Rothko painting. I just needed the combination. Jesse cornered me at the rehearsal dinner, backing me into the wine cellar. "I know why you're really here," he breathed, hand sliding up my thigh higher than his father ever dared. "That night at Eden, you asked about Mom's accident. A bottle shattered upstairs." Vincent's laughter boomed. Jesse pressed closer. "I'll help you destroy him." His teeth scraped my earlobe. "If you let me watch." The safe opened at 3 a.m. Passports, offshore account numbers, and a single USB labeled Carolyn, Vincent's late wife. The video loaded slowly. Not an accident, a struggle. Her pleading. The glint of Vincent's wedding ring as he... The bedroom door burst open. TSK, TSK. Vincent clicked his tongue, holding up his phone showing me in Jesse's bed yesterday. My son always did love hand-me-downs. Behind him, Jesse smirked, adjusting his cufflinks, the same ones he'd worn at Eden. They'd known, from the very first interview, the prenup, worthless, Vincent's fortune, already moved, and Jesse. His fingers tangled in my hair as Vincent unknotted his tie. "Dad prefers an audience," he whispered. The USB wasn't in the safe anymore. It was in my hand. And the footage? Not Caroline. A different brunette. A different accident. The Moretti family tradition. The USB burned in my palm like a live coal as Vincent advanced, his custom Oxfords clicking against the marble floor. Jesse's grip tightened in my hair, forcing my head back to meet his father's gaze. "Did you really think we wouldn't recognize one of our own investments?" Vincent purred, tracing the scar along my collarbone, the one from the night a client at Eden got too rough. The night Jesse had him taken care of. My blood turned to ice. They'd known who I was from the beginning, known why I came. Played me like a violin. The video still played on the laptop behind us, that poor brunette's final moments looping in horrific silence. Jesse's lips brushed my ear. Carolyn was wife number 3. "You're number 5. His chuckle vibrated through me. "Dad gets sentimental with the home videos." Vincent's hand slid under my nightgown as he addressed his son. "Did you prep her?" Jesse's answering grin was all teeth. "Like you taught me." Something metallic pressed into my thigh, Jess's switchblade, hidden in the fold of my robe. A test. A choice. Vincent's fingers dug into my hip. "The safe combination changes every Thursday," he mused, biting my shoulder hard enough to draw blood. "But you'll never live to see morning anyway." That's when the screaming started downstairs. Vincent froze. The security panel by the door flashed red. Someone had breached the gate. Jesse released me to check the monitor, his cocky smirk dying instantly. "It's the Hernandez cartel. The name made Vincent go pale. They wouldn't dare. The first gunshot shattered the window. Chaos erupted. More gunfire, shouting in Spanish. Jesse yanked me to the floor as bullets riddled the wall where we just stood. The USB, he hissed, eyes wild. What's really on it? I smiled for the first time that night. Proof Vincent killed their heir. The door exploded inward. The cartel poured into the bedroom like a black-tied 6 men in tactical gear, their muzzles flashing in the dark. Vincent shoved me toward them like a human shield, but Jesse moved faster, tackling his father to the ground as bullets chewed through the headboard where my skull had been. Plaster rained down as I scrambled for the knife still hidden in my robe, my ears ringing from the gunfire. The USB was gone, lost in the chaos, but it didn't matter anymore. The Hernandez brothers already had their proof. Miguel Hernandez himself stepped over the threshold, his gold-capped teeth glinting in the muzzle flashes. Vincent Moretti, he crooned, pressing a Desert Eagle to Vincent's temple. You shouldn't have filmed my sister's murder. Vincent's eyes darted to me, finally understanding. The brunette in the video wasn't some random mistress. She was Sofia Hernandez, the cartel princess who'd vanished 3 years ago after dating Vincent. The sister Miguel had turned Miami upside down to find. Jesse suddenly lunged for the nightstand drawer. I expected a gun. Instead, he hurled a silver flash drive at Miguel. Everything my father's ever done, he panted. Bank codes, property deeds, the names of every cop and judge on his payroll. Miguel caught it, eyebrows rising. Jesse wiped blood from his split lip. I've been waiting years for this. Vincent's scream as they dragged him away would haunt me forever, but the real horror came later. Sunrise found Jesse and me on his yacht, the Miami skyline bleeding orange behind us. My hands still shook from adrenaline, or maybe from the way his fingers traced my spine as he poured tequila. To new beginnings, he murmured, clinking his glass against mine, the liquid burn going down. Or maybe that was the realization settling in my gut. Jesse had planned this from the start. Did you know? I asked quietly. About me. About Eden. His smile was a razor in the dawn light. I requested you specifically. He pulled out his phone, showing security footage from the club's backroom me. 2 years ago, stitching up a wounded girl while the bouncers turned a blind eye. You were the only dancer who helped the broken dolls. His thumb brushed my cheek. I needed someone who'd understand. The tequila turned to acid in my throat. Understand what? The cabin door burst open. A woman stood there mid-40s, her once beautiful face gaunt beneath a ragged bob. Vincent's second wife, Carolyn, alive. Jesse rose smoothly. Mom, he said, meet your replacement. Caroline's hands trembled as she stepped into the cabin, her hospital bracelet still clinging to her bony wrist. The woman in Vincent's home video had been vibrant, screaming. This version looked like she hadn't seen sunlight in years. You're early, Jesse chided, pouring a third glass of tequila like this was some fucked up family reunion. Carolyn ignored it, her hollow eyes locking onto mine. Does she know? The yacht rocked violently as I stood. Know what? Jesse sighed, pulling a manila envelope from the safe. Inside were photos of a younger Carolyn pregnant, bruised, fleeing a hospital in nothing but a blood-stained gown. Vincent's first wife didn't fall down the stairs, he said softly. She was pushed by wife number 2, who then became wife number 3, who then tried to kill me when I refused to play along. Carolyn finished, rolling up her sleeves to reveal jagged scar tissue. They have a system. The prenup voids if the wife dies. By natural causes. Her laugh was broken glass. 3 women before me, 2 after, all accidents. All profitable. The tequila bottle shattered against the wall. And you? I spat at Jesse. Where the hell were you? His smile died. Walked in boarding school until I turned 18. Then he brought me home ... to watch. He unbuttoned his shirt, showing identical scar patterns to Caroline's. I wasn't just his son. I was his proof no one would believe us. The safe house stank of antiseptic and betrayal. Carolyn slept fitfully in the next room while Jesse spread blueprints across the kitchen table Moretti manner. Every secret passage marked in red. The estate goes into lockdown tonight, he murmured. Vincent's lawyers will declare him legally dead at sunset. His finger tapped a vault beneath the wine cellar. That's where he keeps the real will. The one naming me sole heir, with a clause. I already knew. You have to be married. To someone he approved. His gaze burned through me. You. Outside, thunder rolled. The storm matched the tempest in my chest. This wasn't revenge anymore. This was succession. Caroline appeared in the doorway, clutching a faded Polaroid. The missing piece, a teenage Jesse standing beside Vincent at a funeral. Only the corpse in the casket was Jesse's biological father. Vincent didn't marry my mother, he said quietly. He murdered her husband and took her. Like property. The photo trembled in my hands. The same funeral had been in Vincent's study, the same date as Sofia Hernandez's disappearance. The same pattern for 30 years. Midnight, the manor loomed like a mausoleum. Jessie disabled the security while Carolyn led me through the servants' entrance, her old escape route. The vault door groaned open to reveal stacks of wills, each bearing a dead woman's name. And there, glowing under black light, was the truth. Vincent's ledger. Every wife, every accident, every payout. Page after page of victims, ... including an entry for me, ... New PA idea. No family. Club background makes suicide believable. Wedding set for 10/15, policy active 10/16. Jesse's arms wrapped around me from behind, his lips brushing my ear as the sirens wailed in the distance. Now you see why I needed someone from Eden? He pressed a gun into my hand. The dancers were the only ones who fought back. The front door burst open, not the police. Miguel Hernandez and his men, their muzzles trained on us, ... Surprise, Jesse whispered. And then the real game began. The gun felt foreign in my hand as Miguel Hernandez stepped forward, his gold tooth glinting in the vault's dim light. But it wasn't me he aimed at, it was Jesse. Took you long enough? Miguel growled, slamming a new file on the table. Inside were photos of Vincent signing documents with a man whose face made Carolyn gasp, the governor. Jesse's laugh was hollow. Of course. He owned the cops and the cartel. His fingers traced the governor's face. This changes nothing. The plan stays the same. Miguel's men parted as a figure emerged from the shadows. Sofia Hernandez, very much alive, her once beautiful face now a patchwork of scars. You promised me his heart, she hissed at Jesse. The pieces clicked together. The corpse in Vincent's video had been a paid double. The real Sofia had been rotting in Vincent's private prison beneath the stables. Just like Carolyn had been, just like I would have been. Jesse pressed the gun into my palm. It's your choice. Walk away with the Hernandez family now, or stay and claim the empire, Sofia finished, her ruined lips twisting. But know this, the Moretti crown comes with chains. She rolled up her sleeve, revealing the same brand Vincent's wives all shared, a twisted M over a broken heart. The vault door creaked open again. Vincent stood there, bloodied but alive, flanked by SWAT. Enough theatrics, he spat. The governor hovered behind him, pale as death. That's when the detonator in Jesse's pocket started beeping. 3 months later, the funeral was lavish. Vincent's charred remains filled a solid gold casket paid for by his grieving widow me. The governor gave the eulogy. Sofia Hernandez sat in the front row, her face hidden behind a veil. And Jesse? The papers called him a hero for trying to save his father from the cartel bombing. Only I noticed the fresh brand beneath his cufflinks when he kissed my cheek at the will reading. The same brand now hidden under my wedding ring. Because the truth no one knew, the detonator was a fake. The real bomb had been in Vincent's scotch glass all along. And the game? It never ends. The scent of burning flesh still clung to my hair as I stood before the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Moretti penthouse, watching the city lights flicker like distant stars. 3 weeks had passed since Vincent's tragic demise, but the real work was just beginning. The will reading had been a masterclass in deception. Jess's performance as the grieving son worthy of an Oscar. My trembling hands as the shell-shocked widow earning sympathetic glances from the sharks circling Vincent's empire. The elevator dinged behind me. Mrs. Moretti. The voice sent ice down my spine. Governor Reynolds stood in the doorway, his tailored suit unable to hide the sweat stains darkening his armpits. We need to discuss certain ... arrangements. I sipped my bourbon slowly, letting him squirm. The USB in my pocket, the one Jesse had slipped me during the funeral, burned like a brand. You mean the offshore accounts? I purred. Vincent used to launder cartel money through the Children's Hospital Fund. His face went slack. That's when the bedroom door creaked open. Sophia emerged, her scarred face illuminated by the fireplace. "Hello, Robert," she crooned, running a finger along the governor's collar. "Remember what happened to the last politician who crossed the Hernandez family?" The governor's knees hit the marble. Midnight found me in Vincent's private. My study now poring over ledgers with Jesse. Moonlight caught the fresh scar, peeking above his shirt collar where the cartel bullet had grazed him during the funeral chaos. A perfect wound, a perfect alibi. "You missed one," he murmured, tapping a page. A $20 million transfer dated 2 days before the explosion to an account under Caroline's maiden name. My mother's name. The glass slipped from my fingers. Jesse's smile was knife-sharp. "Did you really think I didn't know? That you weren't tracking Vincent long before Eden? That your mother wasn't wife number 2? He pressed a yellowed photograph into my palm, a younger Caroline holding hands with a woman who shared my eyes. "Welcome to the family business, stepsister." The panic room beneath the penthouse smelled of antiseptic and betrayal. Caroline sat before a wall of screens, monitoring the governor's frantic calls. She didn't turn as I entered. "He'll sign over the Port Authority by dawn," she said quietly. I gripped the photo. "Did you know?" Her reflection smiled in the darkened glass. "That your mother sent you to Eden to get close to Vincent, of course." She finally faced me, lifting her sleeve to reveal twin brands, one fresh, one decades old. We all take our turns wearing the crown. The screens flickered suddenly, showing live footage from the club. A new dancer twirled on stage, her red hair catching the light, just like mine used to. Jesse found me on the balcony at sunrise, his arms wrapping around me as the city woke beneath us. "The governor's resigned," he murmured against my neck. "The board voted you interim CEO." In the distance, smoke still rose from the Hernandez docks, Sophia's first move in our new alliance. Somewhere below, Carolyn was planting evidence in the governor's safe. And in a dorm room across town, the red-headed dancer from the club footage was unpacking a box of photos, including one of Vincent at her high school graduation. I leaned into Jesse, letting his heartbeat steady me. The game wasn't over. It had just leveled up. The Moretti empire was mine now. The lawyers had finished their paperwork, the board had bowed their heads, and the governor's sudden retirement had cleared the last obstacle. I sat in Vincent's, no, my leather chair, staring at the wall of screens Carolyn monitored. Each one showed a different piece of our chessboard. The docks Sophia now controlled, the police commissioner sweating in an interrogation room, the new dancer at Edenlina with her fiery red hair and a grudge buried deep enough to make her dangerous. Jesse leaned against the desk, swirling bourbon in a crystal glass. "You look good in black," he murmured, eyeing my morning dress, "but you'll look better in red." I knew what he meant. The real game was just beginning. Lena was smarter than I had been. She didn't wait for Jesse to notice her. She came straight for me, ... I found her in my office one evening, perched on the edge of my desk like she owned it, flipping through Vincent's old ledger. "He really kept receipts on everything, didn't he?" She mused, tapping a page that listed payments to a private investigator. "My investigator." I didn't reach for the gun in my drawer. "You're her daughter," I said instead. Lena smiled, slow and cruel. "And you're the woman who got my mother killed." The air left my lungs, because suddenly it all made sense. The red hair, the way she moved, the hatred in her eyes. Lena wasn't just another girl looking for revenge. She was Vincent's. Jesse laughed when I told him, not in amusement, in relief. "Of course he had another heir," he said, pacing the penthouse like a caged animal. "The bastard always had a backup plan." I stared at the DNA report in my hands, the one Caroline had dug up. Lena wasn't just Vincent's daughter. She was his legitimate one, born to a mistress he'd kept hidden for years, a failsafe, a replacement, and now she was here to claim what was hers. It started with fire. Eden burned first, the flames lighting up the Miami skyline like a funeral pyre. Then the shipments at the docks vanished. Then the bodies began appearing, board members, associates, anyone who had sworn loyalty to me. Lena wasn't playing games. She was erasing us ... Jesse and I stood in the ruins of the club, the embers still glowing at her feet. "We can't beat her head on," he said, voice rough with smoke. I smiled. "Then we don't fight fair." We used the one thing Lena couldn't resist: Vincent's legacy. I leaked word of a vault beneath the manor, one that held his real will, the one that named his true successor. She came at midnight, just as we'd hoped. But she wasn't alone. Sophia stood beside her, a gun in her hand and betrayal in her eyes. "You promised me vengeance," she hissed at me, "not another Moretti in power." Jesse stepped out of the shadows, his own weapon raised. "Funny, she said the same thing about you." The standoff lasted 3 heartbeats. Then the vault clicked open behind them. Carolyn emerged, holding a single sheet of paper, Vincent's real will. And the name written on it wasn't Lena's, it was mine. Lena screamed. Sophia fired. Jesse tackled me to the ground as the bullet meant for my heart struck the vault door instead. When the dust settled, Lena was gone. Sophia lay bleeding on the marble, and Carolyn stood over us all, a queen finally claiming her throne. "Did you really think I would let him win?" she whispered, pressing a kiss to my forehead. "Even in death?" 1 year later, the Moretti Empire was unrecognizable. The illegal arms gone, the blood money laundered clean, and the woman sitting at the head of the boardroom table, no longer a pawn, no longer a victim, a queen. Jesse lounged in the chair beside me, his fingers laced with mine as the shareholders voted unanimous. Carolyn watched from the doorway, her smile sharp as a knife. And somewhere out there, Lena was still running. But that was a problem for another day.